anyway, so as Andrew said, we are jumping into week 2 out of 3 weeks for our series called Finish Strong. And it's so important. And I love God's timing on things, because we planned on doing this series like this time of year, clear back last summer. Last summer, we were mapping out doing this series now, and God's like, watch what I do with this. And so what that reminds me is when challenges come our way and stuff like that, God's not surprised, right? You can see as you see God's sense of humor throughout your life, when he does ridiculous things like that, of like, God knew that we were going to be making this announcement this week for Andrew well before Andrew had ever even knew anything about the Opportunity Life Church. And God's like, watch me work. But when God says, watch me work like that, what that also means is, watch how in control I am. Well, watch how much I got this together. Watch how I hold this together. And the reason why that's so important is, as Andrew mentioned last week, if you were here last week, you maybe remember, or if you weren't here last week, just to catch you up. So last week, Andrew was talking about in the book of Numbers, where they're about ready to enter Moses and the Israelites. They're looking at Israel. They're looking at the promised land that God is promising to give them. And they send in 12 spies to go check it out before they go kind of take over the area and claim the land that God was ready to give them. And they send in the 12 spies, and 10 come back. They're like, dude, everybody there is huge. They're jacked. Like, I think they're in the NFL. Like, there's no way we can take these guys. Like there's no way. Like, we're out of here. And then 2 of the spies come back. They're like, yeah, they're right. Like, they are big, but we got God, and so we're not really afraid of anything. Like, let's go. Like, this is called the promised land after all, and I'm pretty sure God makes good on his promises, so let's go get it. All right, and the 10 guys, they end up swaying the rest of the crowd. The rest of the crowd is like, there's a lot more of them, and they're freaked out, so I'm kind of freaked out, so no, we're not going. Like there's no way. They believed the 10, and so what ends up happening is God gets so frustrated with them that they're not going to see following through with his promise that he's ready to give them. And he's like, fine, you don't trust me? You don't have faith in me? You can't go into the promised land. I'm going to wait until the next generation. I'm going to wait till your kids' generation, and they're going to inherit the promised land, because they're going to be faithful, because they're going to trust. All right. And so God allows them to wander around in the wilderness for the next 40 years until the next generation comes and they're ready to enter in. All right. And so, but everybody has to wait those 40 years except, all right, well, actually everybody from that generation doesn't get in. They wait till the next generation, except for Caleb and Joshua, the 2 faithful spies. The 2 faithful spies, God's like, no, you guys still get to make it in. You still get to experience the promised land because you trusted me. You trusted me way back then when it was so difficult to see. You were seeing my hand in it beyond the obstacle. All right, and so that was what Andrew took us last week. And what he said is that when we believe and hold fast to God's promises, we're able to finish strong. Caleb and Joshua, they were able to finish strong because they trusted not in their own strength, not in their own ability, but they trusted in God's promise. They trusted that God could do it. They had faith. And so last week, we talked a lot about the why, but today we're going to talk a lot about the how. So how do we put in that kind of faith? How do we put in that kind of trust? How do we make sure that we don't get distracted, all right, by the obstacles, by the challenges, by the giants in the land, the giants in our way? And how do we see things through? How do we see things through so that we can finish strong? Well, today, the big giant that I want to tackle in our life is the giant of distraction. How many of you guys would say you get distracted easy? Anybody here get distracted easy? Whole lot of us, the ones of you that didn't raise your hand, you probably didn't hear me ask the question because you were distracted. I'll ask you, how many of it? No, like we get distracted so easy. Like think about time. Has anybody here ever missed doing a homework assignment, or you weren't ready for a quiz? I saw a hand go up just like in general. Like, yes, I've missed lots of homework assignments. Sometimes, no. How many of you missed one because you didn't even know there was one because you didn't hear it? Like, teacher is talking, like, all right, go ahead and turn to page 365. You're going to, do this math set. You're going to do 15 questions, and you show up like the next day, and like everybody's like turning in papers. You're like, why is everybody walking papers up to the front? Like, what did I miss? You're like, and you're like, they're like, yeah, we had like that assignment, like page 360. You're like, I didn't know that. Like, when did she announce that? Like, yesterday. Were you sick? Like, no, I was there, kind of. Like, we get distracted so easy. And sometimes we get distracted over, really plain simple things like that honestly don't carry that much weight. Okay, you missed like that homework assignment. It's not the end of the world. All right. Or sometimes we get distracted by bigger things. Like there's that moment that you're driving that there's brake lights ahead of you and you didn't realize those cars were stopped because you're coming in, too hot, too fast, definitely not stopping, and poof, before you know it, your front of your car is in the back of somebody else's car, and it's not good. Sometimes our distraction is even worse. But here's the thing is we are a very distracted people, right? We are a very distracted people. And in fact, as they've done research over the years, the average attention span of Americans, I'm sure this is true in pretty much every country anymore. All right. The average attention span of Americans goes down by a number of seconds every single year. It just keeps going down and going down and going down. But the thing is, it's not like, oh, well, it's just like younger generations that are more distracted. No. The older generations that used to have way more attention span, they're getting more distracted too, because our lives are becoming increasingly filled with additional distractions. Increasingly filled, like there's more and more distractions around us every single day, constantly. In fact, to test our ability to pay attention, to test our ability to look beyond the distractions, I want us to check out this video. How many of you saw the moonwalking bear the first time around? Did you really? You didn't count. You didn't. wait. You caught the moonwalking bear the first time around, but you said you didn't know that we're supposed to count, which was the announcement in the front of the video. It was like how many passes. So you caught the one thing that you didn't know you were supposed to catch, but you missed the thing that it asked us to catch. But it's that easy to get distracted, right? It's that easy to get our focus narrowed in on the wrong things, or to get narrowed in on one thing and miss all the other things that are happening. And so the reason why I want to show that is because it's important for us to understand how easy it is for us to miss it, how easy it is for us to miss the bigger picture, to miss what's going on. In fact, to help us with this, I want us to understand that in order to grow our faith, to grow in our faith, we have to fix our focus. We have to fix our focus. And what I mean by that is it's so easy for us to get caught up in distractions because there's constantly moments that we are trying to fill our time. Like when we get bored and stuff like that, we fill our time with oftentimes what can be worthless things. How many of you guys have been like sitting like at a doctor's office? What's the first thing you do when you sit at a doctor's office anymore? You get your phone out, right? Like you're like, oh my gosh, I've been waiting here for 2.5 minutes. Like what? Like we do that. Like I check, like, I know a lot of you probably check social media like constantly, like so rapidly you check it that there's zero new stories. There's zero new stories. There's zero new posts, but you're like, just had to make sure. Like I'm that way with email, which is like really dorky of me, but like I'll check my email like 1,000 times a day. I'm like, nope, no new emails. I'm constantly doing it, just to see if anything's changed. But the thing is when we're doing that, when we're chasing after distraction after distraction, the problem is not always the distraction itself. Sometimes the distraction is a big problem, but the problem is what we're missing in place of it. The problem is what we're missing in place of it, and that is the bigger or better thing. All right, and so today, as we're diving into this, I want us to understand what some of the distractions are that we face. In fact, one of the distractions when it comes to following God, one of the biggest distractions, this is going to pop up on the screen. One of our greatest distractions is sin. Right? Sin is one of our greatest distractions, and the reason why, right? Every single sin that's out there is specifically designed to be distracting. It's designed to pull us away from something better. It's designed to waste our time. It's designed to draw us into something negative, to draw us into something that hurts us or hurts someone else. But a lot of times it's also just designed to cause us to miss out on the better thing. All right. In fact, Jewish people back in the day, they would label things as holy, which meant it was good. It was ordained by God. It was something to be used in pursuit of God. In fact, in the temple, all their objects of worship, like they would have even their spoons in the temple were holy. Like everything that was in there was consecrated and was made a certain way so it would be set apart to be in pursuit and honoring of God. All right. And then you have the things on the opposite end of the spectrum, which is like sin. Sin is anything that is doing the exact opposite. If holy things are helping you pursue God, sin is pushing you away from God. It's driving a wedge between you and God. It's pushing you away. It's drawing you away. It's trying to lure you from God to something else. All right, it's trying to, and sometimes it's not just trying to lure you from God. It's trying to lure you away from God's purpose. It's trying to lure you away from God's best. All right, and so it's trying to get you to settle for something less than God's best. But then also in Jewish society, they also believed that some things were just neutral. It wasn't holy and it wasn't sinful. It was just somewhere in the middle. All right, it was this plain. But the thing was, in Jewish society, they didn't just try to avoid sin. All right, they also tried to eliminate out of their life as many things that were just neutral as possible. It's like, because if this is something that's neutral, that's basic, then it's taking up the space of something better. All right, and so if I remove the thing that's neutral or basic, then I can fill that time, I can fill that space with something better, with something holy, with something that is in pursuit of God. All right, in fact, that's what we see here in Hebrews chapter 12. Let's check it out. The writer of Hebrews says this. He says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. All right, let me pause right there for a second. What he's saying here, he's referring back to something in Hebrews chapter 11. I'm going to throw up a picture right here. So in Hebrews chapter 11, what's happening? The chapter 11 is known as the Hall of Faith. All right, where the Hebrews writer lists out a whole bunch of heroes throughout the Old Testament who lived incredibly faithful lives to God. That they weren't perfect. In fact, every single one of their stories, you can see some failures along the way. Some times where they totally missed it. All right, times that they settled for something neutral, times that they fell into something sinful. But every single time they turned and they made their way. They allowed God to pick them up, and they returned to pursuing God over anything else, and they ended up finishing strong. And so in the Hall of Faith, as people like Moses and David and Abraham, these people who made great sacrifices to chase after God's best for their life. Going back to the Hebrews 12 passage, it goes on and says this. It says, so we're surrounded by this great cloud of witnesses. The great cloud of witnesses are these people who went before us in pursuing God, who showed us how to do it, who modeled for us what it meant to finish strong, to pursue Christ and finish strong. He says, since we have these great cloud of witnesses who've modeled this for us, let us then throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. All right, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run the race with perseverance, the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. It says, consider him, Jesus, who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. So what it's saying here is that we have to throw off everything that's hindering us, everything that's holding us back, everything that's sinful. Is saying, drop it, lay it aside. Everything that's neutral, that's getting in the way of God's best, set it aside. This might be a perfectly fine thing, but it's getting in the way of a great thing, the greater thing that God's doing, that God wants to do. All right, so look at these steps that he gives us. The first one is the first way that we can faithfully persevere. All right, is to lay aside every weight and sin. Lay aside every weight and sin. A good example I thought of this. How many of you are athletes? All right, how many of you guys do play a sport? Now, when you think about when you play a sport, so think about how anybody here play football? Any football players in here? A couple of you guys. So imagine when you're playing football. All right, somebody like say you're a runner, you're running the ball. All right, and there's a guy tackling you that they have you wrapped up, but you're still moving along with them. You're dragging them a little bit. All right, here's the deal in that moment. What are you trying to do? You're trying to shed the tackler, right? You're trying to shed the tackler because one, he's slowing your progress. All right, but two, not only is he slowing your progress, what he's actually creating is the opportunity for the next guy to come lay you out, right? He's creating the opportunity for the next guy to come put you on the ground. He's slowing your progress just enough for somebody to come truck you and put you in the dirt. That's exactly what he's doing. Like if that person that you're dragging, you want to shed the weight so that you can make the progress before you get waylaid. All right, that's it. That's exactly what the enemy tries to do. Is the enemy tries to burden us. He tries to weigh us down with this weight just enough to hinder our progress so that we get trucked by the next obstacle coming our way. I know we had several people in here do the Pittsburgh Marathon over 2 weeks ago. How many of you did the Pittsburgh Marathon? Anybody? So I see Kylie Klinger back there, and Adam Kaufman did the Pittsburgh Marathon too. Both of you guys ran the full marathon, right? And so the reason why I mentioned that is if you any other runners in here, like whether you run track or cross country or anything, so a handful of you. Now, when you think of running gear, because I ran track in high school. When you think of running gear is all like as light as possible. All right, it's as light as possible so that it's not holding you back. It's not weighing you down. It's so that you can shed as much weight as you can to help you be faster as you're running the race. All right, and so that's exactly what God's calling us to do. Is He's calling us to ask the question, is this thing helping me run well? All right, a lot of times I think we ask the question, well, would this be sin or would this be sin? And when we're asking that question, sometimes we're asking that question because we're missing the point. We're thinking, well, I just need to get rid of all the sin. We need to get rid of all the sin that's weighing us down, but we also all the things that are just basic, that are distractions that are getting in the way of God's best. And so the question isn't necessarily as much as part of it is this sin. Is this something I need to drop and lay aside? But the second thing is this thing just getting in the way? Is this a neutral thing that is wasting my time and keeping me from God's best? See, everything that holds us back from running as efficiently and faithfully as possible needs to be laid aside. Going back to that illustration of a runner, imagine, this is where I put this on. This right here is a weighted vest. I got it from Tyler Zimmer, who owns a local gym, if you guys know him. But this is a weighted vest. All right, now imagine trying to live life constantly just wearing a weighted vest. Like my back, like I wore it like 7 minutes last service. I've been wearing it for like 4 now. Like my lower back is already like, I'm done. like I'm good. Like we can take it off now because it's weighing me down. It's holding me back. And so it will slow my progress. If I try to go through my daily life just constantly living this, like even mundane tasks that seem irrelevant to this, I'll be more exhausted and I'll struggle at doing them as efficiently. Like even if I was like sitting down on my computer, just like typing up stuff, I'd be like, dude, I'm so tired. Like my back is like killing me right now. Just from this, like things that it seems like it's unattached to, it definitely has an effect on. And sometimes I think we treat sin that way. We're like, well, that's in this own little area. So how does that necessarily affect all these other areas of my life? It does. All right, just like wearing a weighted vest. And so what is the writer of Hebrews calling us to do? He's calling us to shed the weight. He's calling us to take that what's hindering us and to lay it aside. And this doesn't seem like much, but when you're carrying it all day long, that's a lot of weight. All right, it might not look like it, but we carry so much more weight with the sin and the other things that are holding us back than what we even imagine. All right, and that's important for us to recognize. And so the question is, so how do we lay the weight aside? Well, the writer of Hebrews says this. He says, this is how. He says, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. You want to know how, because what did we say about Satan and his tactics earlier? He loves to use things that are tempting. He loves to use things that are somewhat desirable or alluring, right? Like that's how you catch fish. How do you catch a fish? You use lure, something that's going to draw them in. Like I'm not trying to catch fish with like things that fish aren't interested in. You try to use bait that's going to draw them in, something that they desire. That's exactly what the enemy does. So how do we let go of that which part of us maybe actually desires to pursue something better? Fix our eyes on Jesus. Fix our eyes on Jesus, because then when you're looking Jesus square in the face, that thing doesn't look so appealing anymore. By comparison, that looks like a pile of garbage to what Jesus has to offer. When you lock eyes with Jesus, you're like, Jesus, I'm in. Like, let's go. Every weight, every sin, every neutral thing that's holding us back looks so much less compared to Jesus. All right, and it goes on to say, consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that we will not grow weary and lose heart. See, the writer knows that we have this temptation to grow weary as we're pursuing Christ, as we're running the race. He's like, you want to finish strong? Then fix your eyes on Jesus. Look at what you're running ahead to. If you guys want to hear something super dorky about me when I was in high school, I'll admit that it's dorky. If any of you guys do it, I'm glad you do. But when I ran track, something I do, because I get exhausted. I ran the 800, which is probably one of the suckiest races, because you have to you're supposed to sprint it and try to not die in the process. So But usually when you get around to the 600, 650 mark, they call that hitting the wall. And it's where you feel like you're running as fast as you can, but to the observer, you're like you look pitiful the last 100 meters. You do. And the thing that used to get me through the last 100, 150 meters was I was a brand new Christian as well. So I was like, let's go, Jesus. All right. And I would literally picture Jesus at the finish line. Like I would act like I was running to him, like I had to get to him with all of my might. And that was what I used to motivate me and to push me. All right. And that's what God's calling us to do. All right. Is to keep our eyes and our mind on Jesus and what he did for us on the cross. And that's going to enable us to better drop all the weight that hinders us, that's holding us back. All right. So the big question is, so how do we do this? How do we drop the weight? How do we move forward for it? The first thing is we have to self-evaluate and shed the weight. Self-evaluate what I mean by that is we have to be honest about what's really holding us back in our walk with Christ. We have to be honest because there's some things that would be in this vest, all right, that I'm like, but I kind of like that one. I'd kind of like to keep that one. And God's like, yeah, but is it holding you back? Is it keeping you from me? Is it getting in the way? Is it getting in the way of everything all the better things that I have for you? And when we recognize that, then it's like, well, why wouldn't I drop it? If God's like, I have something better to replace that, then why wouldn't I let it go? So we have to give an honest evaluation and say, what are the things that are really holding me back? And then to compare those to Jesus and be like, but I know he's worth it. All right. The second thing is to don't run alone. To not run alone. I was talking to Adam after he got done running the Pittsburgh Marathon, and he was telling me that he ran with a good friend of ours for the first half of it. All right. This person was doing the half marathon. He was in the full. And he's to motivate him, to help him do better. He ran with somebody else for the first 13 miles because he knew that was going to make him stronger and faster and help him to get a better time later on. See, when we surround ourselves with people that are running the right way, in the right direction, it actually strengthens us. It encourages us because we know we're not running alone. Because there's a part where you're running on your own. You're like, I'd like to quit now. like I'm good. All right. Kylie had said that there's points in which where you're like, it'd be really easy. Like nobody's around. Just like I'm going to catch an Uber for these last 8 miles or something like that. But there's a part where you fix your eyes on what's to come, and you're like, well, I can make it. I can make it. And when you have somebody there beside you pushing you, it makes it easier to go farther and faster. All right. And then which leads to the last thing is to stay alert. To stay alert, to recognize the objects and the obstacles along the way. All right. So that we're not tripping over the curbs. We're not tripping over the stumbling blocks and injuring ourselves from being able to complete the race. So to doing these things that get in the way of us being able to get to win the race. Or to complete the race. So here's the thing: is just like running a marathon, running with endurance and finishing strong. All right, it's not for the faint of heart. It's going to require discipline. All right, it's going to require discipline. It's going to require saying yes to some things and no to other things, so that we can finish strong. It's going to require commitment. All right, just like Kylie's example of I'd love to Uber, part of this, but she stayed committed. She's like, but I want to finish strong. I want to see this thing through. All right, and then the last thing is it takes devotion. It takes devotion. It's that is I want this more than anything. I want to see this through. I want to finish this race more than anything else in my life. I want to finish this life on fire for Christ, making as big of a difference in this life as I can, that everything else just seems unacceptable. So how do I do that? It's recognizing that Jesus is the author and perfecter of our faith. That you are not mapping out the trail. You're not laying out the course. He's already mapping it out for you. He's like, hey, here's the best course I want you to take. But you just got to follow me in it. You just got to trust me. You just got to step on the trail and let's go. Let's go. Let's go do this together. And he's going to map that out. He's going to lead you through it. But you got free will in it. He says, you know what? It's up to you. Come with me. Come follow me. So when you keep your eyes on Jesus, it helps you remember what he's done for you. Helps you remember that he's got the strength for you to help you persevere. And it helps you keep your eyes on the prize at the end, which is him, which is going to help us finish strong. That being said, let's pray. God, I thank you for every single person in this room, that you have marked out a race for every single one of us, one that is personally tailored to the best life that you want us to lead, that life that you created, that you desired for us when you created us with a plan and a purpose. And Lord, you have a plan and a purpose for every single one of us. So Lord, help us to not miss it. Help us not get distracted by by the weight of sin and even the weight of neutral things that get in the way of your best. But God, help us to pursue you over everything else, to chase after your best and just to give you our lives and to be faithful all the way through. So to finish strong and to put you first. God, we love you, and it's in Jesus' name we pray.